The members of the Frankfurt School are Marxist. They are also, to a man, Jewish. In 1933, the Nazis come to power in Germany, and not surprisingly, they immediately shut down the Institute for Social Research. And its members flee. They flee to New York City, and the Institute is reestablished there in 1933 with help from Columbia University. And the members of the school, gradually through the 30s, though most of them continue to write in German, they gradually shift their focus from critical theory about German society, destructive criticism of every aspect of that society, to critical theory directed at American society. There is another very important translation when the war comes. Some of them go to work for the government, including Herbert Marcuse, who becomes a key figure in the OSS, the predecessor to the CIA, and some, including Horkheimer and Adorno, move to Hollywood. These origins of political correctness would probably not mean much to us today, except for two subsequent events. The first was the student rebellion here in the mid-1960s, which was driven largely by resistance to the draft and to the Vietnam War. But the student rebels needed theory of some sort. They couldn't just get out there and say, hell no, we don't want to go. They had to have some theoretical explanation behind it. Very few of them were interested in wading through Das Kapital. Classical economic Marxism is not light, and most of the radicals of the 60s were not deep. Fortunately for them, and unfortunately for our country today, and not just in the universities, Herbert Marcuse remained in America when the Frankfurt School, after the war, relocates back to Frankfurt. And whereas Mr. Adorno and Horkheimer in Germany are appalled by the student rebellion when it breaks out there, when the student rebels come into Adorno's classroom, he calls the police and has them arrested. Herbert Marcuse, who remained here, saw the 60s student rebellion as the great chance. The opportunity to take the work of the Frankfurt School and make it the theory of a new left in the United States. And one of his books was the key book in this. It became virtually the Bible of the SDS and the student rebels of the 60s, and that book was Eros and Civilization. The essence of it is that Marcuse argues that under a capitalist order, he downplays the Marxism very, very strongly here. The book is subtitled A Philosophical Inquiry into Freud. But the framework is Marxist. He essentially argues that in a capitalist order, again, repression is the essence of that order, and that gives us the person Freud describes, the person with all the hang-ups, the neuroses, because his sexual instincts are repressed. That we can envision a future, if we can only destroy this existing oppressive order, in which we liberate eros, in which we liberate the libido, in which we have a world, again, his own phrase, of polymorphous perversity, in which you can do your own thing. And by the way, in that world, there will no longer be any work, there'll only be play. What a wonderful message for the radicals of the mid-60s. They're students. They're baby boomers. They've grown up never having to worry about anything except eventually having to get a job. And here comes along a guy who's writing in ways they can easily follow and doesn't require them to read a lot of heavy Marxism and tells them everything they want to hear, which is essentially, do your own thing. If it feels good, do it. You never have to go to work. And by the way, Marcuse is the man who creates the phrase, make love, not war. He also explicitly states, coming back to the situation people now face on campus, that he defines liberating tolerance as intolerance from any movement coming from the right and tolerance for any movement coming from the left.